Alright guys, today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm teaching you how to take the best and most unique photos of Sakura or cherry blossoms, and we're not just using this, we're using this too. You come to Japan armed with your camera, hoping to get the best cherry blossom pictures. You've nailed the timing just right, but you've got one problem. Things don't look like this. Instead, there's a ton of people. But that doesn't mean that you can't still get good pictures, so why don't we just jump right into it? So I want to start things off with the basics. Composition and layering. For those of you who don't know, composition is kind of what's included in your shot. Like if you take a look at how I have this framed right here, you got the leading lines of cherry blossoms going off like that. That's composition, how the shot is put together. And that's all well and good because there's no people here, but if you're stuck in an area that has tons of people, you're not going to be able to get a nice clean shot like this. So what do? This is where you want to get up close. When you're shooting the Sakura up close, what you want to do is go for composition and layers. Maybe use the cherry blossoms to frame something, or use the layers of cherry blossoms themselves, putting one in focus and something else out of focus. Focusing in on a single branch. You know what? Let me show you a picture right here. This is what I mean by layering. So taking something that's in focus and out of focus and kind of those leading lines and those layers. That picture that I just showed you there was taken in an incredibly crowded park. There were people everywhere. I had to get up close and get that shot. Another one taken in a very crowded park, and again, composition. You want to go for a unique angle, something that most people don't get. One that I really recommend is actually shooting from inside the tree. Not only do you get the pink and blue or whatever color the sky is, but you get the lines of the branches as well. Let me show you one of my favorite photos from inside of a tree. Like that. Again, if you noticed, some of that photo is in focus, some of it's out of focus, lots of leading lines in terms of the branches. So the composition and the layering, getting up close to the tree when it's super crowded and there's way too many people around. When you're shooting, you can do like I did with that photo and shoot straight forward and through the cherry blossoms themselves, or you can shoot up and get the balance of the cherry blossoms and the blue sky. Play with the lines crossing each other and everything like that. That is tip number one. Now that we have the basics out of the way, let me share with you guys my absolute favorite. This is one that I think everybody should be doing with cherry blossoms, yet nobody seems to be doing. I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just missing it. But here it is, panoramas. Let's start with a really basic panorama, one that I actually took right here about a week ago. This is it right here. Now this particular panorama is stitched together by about 2.5 shots. I took 3 shots and then just stitched them together in Lightroom, and boom, there we go. That's probably the highest quality panorama I've ever taken. Let me show you guys some other ones. Like this one here. This is the first panorama that I ever shot of cherry blossoms, which has not only the cherry blossoms but a nice shot of the river. And if you zoom in, you can see some birds flying in there as well. I got really lucky with that shot. Or one more really unique one that most people wouldn't think of, and it's not going to fit on the screen very well, but it was a panorama. It was a vertical panorama. And a vertical panorama isn't something I would really do, and it's really difficult to share online. You obviously can't put that on Instagram. Facebook will cut it down. It's really hard to share, and you can't exactly print it, but it's a neat one to have. And if people do click in on see it, they're like, wow, that's a really unique photo. The trouble though is that panoramas present you with some pretty interesting challenges. For example, light balance. If you look at that one of the Sakura in the river, while the Sakura where I started the image are pretty nice, it gets pretty blown out on the other side of the image. Additionally, if there are moving objects as you're trying to take the picture, the panorama may not turn out. Wind can have the exact same effect. And panoramas tend to be a lot more difficult in low light situations. So they're not the easiest shots to get, but in the right situation, a panorama of the cherry blossoms can be an amazing photo hack. I think that should be everything on Panoramas. Of course, all of these, if you have any questions, leave it below, but so you found yourself a nice park with some beautiful blue skies and you're ready to take some photos. But what if, just what if the skies aren't blue? What if they're gray or incredibly overcast, like this area out here near the tower? Do you just give up on taking the photo? Probably not. So what do you do if you can't get the cherry blossoms with the beautiful blue sky? This is where your exposure settings come into play. Now, if you don't know what exposure is, it's basically the thing that makes the video or picture brighter or darker. This one is actually a pretty easy fix and it's a quick one. So if you can't get the blue skies, let me show you a picture right here. That was actually on a really gray, cloudy, ugly day, but all I had to do was up the exposure just a little bit. The exposure is basically how much is exposed and how much light gets let in. Like, let me show you on this camera here. I up the exposure, everything gets all white and we say blown out. If I lower the exposure, then it gets all dark and mysterious like this. So upping the exposure when you're taking the picture or even in post afterwards will turn those grays into whites and make it a much more beautiful picture. Pink on white is much nicer than pink on gray, wouldn't you agree? And additionally, all of this can also be done right here on your phone, and that's gonna be my next tip. So let's imagine I'm over here, and I'm like, oh, look at this beautiful branch of cherry blossoms, and hey, is that the sky tree in the background? But I've only got my phone and I still wanna get a really good picture. Literally a non-issue, 90% of it is just touching stuff on the screen, but let me show you. Most of you know manual focus is as easy as just tapping on the part of the screen that you want to focus on. For iPhones, if you press and hold on that spot, it'll lock the focus so it doesn't keep drifting. And remember how we talked about increasing the exposure? On the iPhone at least, I've never really used Android, sorry. That's as easy as swiping on the side of it, which will increase or decrease the exposure. Frame the shot that you want, you touch on it for focus, you see you can do the exposure. Easy stuff. Touching up these photos can be key. For example, that photo that I just took that had the sky tree in the background, if I leave it alone, it looks like this. It's a beautiful picture. If I do about 30 seconds of touching up, that exact same photo looks like this. Not a huge difference, but in order to touch it up, there's a lot you can do in phone or on the computer, but if you want to stick to your cell phone, there's two apps that I'd recommend. One is called Snapseed, and the other one is Lightroom. If you don't know how to use these apps, do not worry, do not panic. They're pretty easy to learn. Of course, there's tutorials all over the place online, but my biggest advice, my tutorial, is take each one of the settings and just drag it to the extremes and see what it does. Get a feel for what each one of the settings in the app does, and all of a sudden, you've got an idea how to use the app. Is that overly simplified? Really, that was how I started learning these apps. Just drag it to the extremes, teach yourself how to use the app. Playing around with these settings is the most fun anyway, so. But it doesn't stop there, because the real challenge and the real fun begins when the sun goes down. During golden hour, where the light is all orange and beautiful, it's pretty easy to get shots like this one here. The light is beautiful, you get a nice blown out image. It's easy to adjust the coloring. Pink on orange, white on orange, it's all good. But once all of your light is gone and it starts to get dark, what do? It's a totally different game then. And nighttime Sakura photos can really be hit or miss. Now, one of the biggest tips that I would give, and I give this for photography at night in general, is chase the light. Go where there's lights, go where there's reflections, and the second biggest tip that I'll give for shooting at night is make sure that you're shooting Sakura that is evenly illuminated. If you got some that are lit really bright and others that are lit really dark, it's gonna be super difficult to get a good photo. And the last evening photography tips that I'm going to give you before my light runs out completely is number one, wait for that beautiful evening blue sky. It'll give you the chance to get that pink on blue or white on blue photo that makes the cherry blossom photos look so nice. And additionally, you see that right there? Water. Use the reflections of the water to get the shot that you want. It also works really well in the daytime. Like, take a look at this picture. If you combine the reflections in the water with chasing the light in a well-lit section of cherry blossom, you can get a photo kind of like this one. And it is worth mentioning that these nighttime photos might take you just a little more work in the editing section, but it's definitely worth it to get a nice nighttime Sakura photo. And that's pretty much it. So I hope this one was helpful. There's a lot of stuff I left out because I didn't want it to be like a 30-minute video. But if you enjoyed it, definitely hit that like button. If you have questions, and I'm guessing you might, leave them in the comment section below and I will do my best to address as many of them as I can. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new. And I can't wait to see you guys again real soon. Bye guys.